The conference room on the 42nd floor was all glass and steel, sharp edges, cold light, and the kind of silence that only money could buy. Charlotte Evans stood at the head of the table, her charcoal suit immaculate, her voice steady as she clicked through the final slide of the quarterly presentation. Global expansion, 3 new markets, projected revenue increase, 42%. Around her, executives nodded with the enthusiasm of people who'd already calculated their bonuses. Through the floor-to-ceiling windows behind her, Manhattan glittered like a promise kept. Every light a testament to ambition, every building a monument to those who'd climbed high enough to forget where they started. Ms. Evans, her assistant interrupted softly, sliding a small wrapped box across the table. The team wanted you to have this, for the holidays. Charlotte glanced at the box, red paper, gold bow, the kind of gesture that belonged in a Hallmark movie, not a boardroom. She pushed it back without opening it. That's thoughtful but unnecessary. Christmas is just good marketing. The real gift is hitting our targets. A few uncomfortable smiles. Someone cleared their throat. It was Jim, the oldest member of her team, who spoke up. His voice carried the weight of too many years watching young executives burn out. "You can buy the market, Charlotte," he said quietly, "but you can't buy Christmas." She barely heard him. Her phone was already buzzing with the next crisis, the next deal, the next rung on a ladder that never seemed to end. Outside, snow began to fall on a city that never slowed down. Inside, Charlotte Evans had everything she'd ever wanted, and absolutely nothing that mattered. Wait just a moment, my dear. Tell me in the comments, from which city and country are you listening? And if you love Christmas stories filled with love and redemption, subscribe now so you don't miss the next one. Now, let's return to our tale. Jim's words hung in the air long after the meeting ended. Charlotte gathered her files, her movements precise and practiced, but something about that comment had lodged itself somewhere uncomfortable, like a pebble in an expensive shoe. You can buy the market, but you can't buy Christmas. She'd heard similar sentiments before, of course. Usually from people who'd never built anything, never sacrificed anything, never understood that sentiment didn't pay mortgages or fund retirements. Christmas was cinnamon-scented candles and manufactured nostalgia, a retail season wrapped in red velvet lies. Yet as she rode the elevator down, watching the numbers descend, she caught her reflection in the polished steel doors. When had the lines around her mouth become so severe? When had her eyes started looking past people instead of at them? Her phone buzzed. A text from corporate. "Maple Creek acquisition approved. Need you on site for final negotiations. Leave Monday." Maple Creek. The name landed like a fist to the sternum. She hadn't thought about that place in years, hadn't allowed herself to. Charlotte stepped out into the December cold, and for just a moment, before she could stop herself, she remembered the smell of her father's Christmas fruitcake baking, the way it filled their tiny kitchen with warmth that had nothing to do with the oven. She shook her head, pulled her coat tighter, and hailed a cab. The past was past. Business was business. The flight to Maple Creek required 2 connections and a rental car that smelled faintly of pine air freshener. A cruel irony Charlotte didn't appreciate. As the highway gave way to country roads, the landscape shifted from concrete to covered bridges, from billboards to hand-painted signs advertising fresh eggs and homemade jam. She'd left this place 18 years ago with a scholarship, a suitcase, and a promise to herself that she'd never come back. She'd kept that promise right up until corporate made it a condition of her next promotion. The Christmas market of Maple Creek wasn't just any acquisition. It was a strategic foothold, a beloved local institution with national brand potential. Her company had already bought the land, secured the vendors' leases, and drafted the plans for a luxury holiday shopping experience that could be franchised across America. All that remained was finalizing the purchase of the cooperative's traditional vendor rights and smoothing over any local resistance. Charlotte's jaw tightened as she passed the old Miller farm, now split into housing developments. Progress. That's what people called it when you paved over the past. Her father's voice echoed unbidden. "Charlotte, baby, slow down. You can't rush Christmas. You can't rush love. Some things need time to rise, like a good fruitcake. She'd been 17, furious that he'd refused to expand beyond his single market stall, refused to think bigger. They'd fought that Christmas, her last one in Maple Creek. She'd told him he had no ambition, that she'd rather die than spend her life selling baked goods to the same 100 people every December. 3 months later, he had the heart attack. 3 months after that, she was at Columbia, building the life he'd never wanted for himself. The rental car crested the hill, and suddenly there it was. Maple Creek, nestled in the valley like a Norman Rockwell painting come to life. Main Street was strung with lights, every lamppost wrapped in garland, every shop window a scene of carefully curated holiday magic. And in the town square, visible even from this distance, stood the Christmas market. White tents glowing in the early dusk, smoke rising from food stalls, the giant tree at its center blazing with 1,000 lights. Charlotte's hands tightened on the steering wheel. She'd come here to close a deal, nothing more. She'd do her job, collect her bonus, and be back in Manhattan before the new year. She absolutely would not let this place make her feel anything. The protest was already in full swing when Charlotte arrived at the town square the next morning. At least 200 people crowded around a makeshift stage, holding signs that read, "Save our market" and "Tradition over profit," and, Charlotte winced, "Corporate greed stole Christmas." She'd dressed carefully for this, approachable but professional, expensive but not ostentatious. The navy coat had cost more than most of these people made in a month, but they didn't need to know that. "Ladies and gentlemen," the mayor was saying, his voice amplified by an ancient sound system that crackled with feedback. "I know change is difficult, but let's hear from the cooperative's representative before we—" "We don't need to hear anything," someone shouted. "We know what they want." The crowd roared approval. Charlotte stayed at the edge, calculating her approach. This was manageable. Every negotiation had opposition. You just had to find the right pressure points, the right compromises, the right... A man climbed onto the stage. Tall, broad-shouldered, wearing a flannel shirt and work boots that had actually seen work. He moved with the easy confidence of someone who belonged exactly where he was. Charlotte's breath caught. No, it couldn't be. "My name is Liam Turner," he said, his voice carrying across the square without needing amplification. "And I'm here to tell you that the Christmas market isn't for sale." Their eyes met across the crowd. He smiled, cold, knowing. "Welcome back, Ms. Evans. Just a brief pause, sweetheart. Tap subscribe, and let's return to the warmth of the story." The meeting room in the town hall was smaller than Charlotte remembered and infinitely more hostile. She sat on one side of the long wooden table, her laptop open, her presentation ready. Across from her, Liam, the mayor, and 3 members of the cooperative board, all watching her like she'd just proposed bulldozing the local church. "The proposal is straightforward," Charlotte began, keeping her voice level. "We preserve the market's existing structure while expanding its reach. Same vendors, same products, just with the backing and resources of a national brand. Everyone benefits." "Everyone except the people who've run this market for 30 years, Liam said quietly. He hadn't stopped looking at her since she'd entered the room, and it was taking all of Charlotte's considerable self-control not to look away. 20 years ago, those eyes had made her believe in forever. Now they just made her tired. "Mr. Turner, I understand change is difficult." "Do you?" He leaned forward and Charlotte caught a hint of sawdust and winter air, so different from the cologne-soaked air of Manhattan boardrooms. Because the Charlotte Evans I knew understood what this market meant to people, what it meant to her father. The room went silent. Charlotte felt something crack in her carefully constructed armor, but she forced her expression to remain neutral. "My father has nothing to do with this business discussion. Your father had everything to do with this market." One of the board members, Mrs. Patterson, Charlotte realized, who'd taught her 4th grade, said softly. "He believed it was about more than profit. He believed it was about community." Charlotte closed her laptop with a decisive click. "Mrs. Patterson, with respect, community doesn't pay mortgages. Community doesn't fund retirements or college educations. I'm offering you a chance to secure your futures while honoring tradition." Honoring? Liam's voice carried an edge now. You want to turn this into a theme park version of itself. Come experience authentic small-town Christmas. Asterisk franchise location may vary. Better than watching it die because everyone's too stubborn to adapt, Charlotte shot back, and immediately regretted it. The room's temperature dropped 10 degrees. The mayor cleared his throat. Perhaps we should all take a breath. Ms. Evans, you've been away a long time. Maybe before we make any final decisions, you should reconnect with what the market actually is. See it through fresh eyes. I don't need to. Spend a week working in the market, Liam interrupted. As a volunteer, help with setup, talk to the vendors, understand what you're actually proposing to buy, then we'll talk numbers. Charlotte stared at him. That's absurd. That's the deal. He stood, extending his hand across the table. 1 week, Ms. Evans, unless you're afraid of a little honest work. The challenge hung between them, and Charlotte Evans had never walked away from a challenge in her life. She shook his hand, felt the calluses against her palm, and wondered what the hell she'd just agreed to. Outside, the church bells began to ring, calling the town to evening mass. Inside, Charlotte Evans felt the first crack in the wall she'd built around her heart. Charlotte stood in front of the mirror in her hotel room, the only hotel in Maple Creek, a converted Victorian house called the Snowflake Inn, and questioned every decision that had led her to this moment. She'd packed designer jeans and a cashmere sweater, thinking that qualified as casual. Now, staring at her reflection, she looked like someone playing dress-up as a normal person. Her phone buzzed, a text from her assistant in New York. Board wants status update. Should I tell them you're going undercover? Charlotte typed back, tell them I'm conducting field research, and turned off her phone. The Christmas market opened at 9, but Liam had told her to arrive at 7. If you want to understand the market, he'd said, you need to see what happens before the customers arrive. The walk from the inn to the town square took 10 minutes through streets she'd once known by heart. The old diner was still there, though it had a new awning. The bookshop where she'd spent every allowance had become a coffee roastery. The hardware store where her father bought his baking supplies still had the same faded sign. Everything had changed. Nothing had changed. The market was a hive of activity in the pre-dawn darkness. Vendors unloaded trucks, strung lights, arranged displays with the practiced efficiency of people who'd done this 1,000 times. The smell of fresh bread mixed with pine and wood smoke. Someone was testing a sound system, Christmas carols crackling through speakers that had definitely seen better days. Charlotte stopped at the edge, suddenly unsure. She didn't belong here. She didn't belong anywhere that required calloused hands and easy laughter, and the kind of comfort that came from doing the same thing, in the same place, with the same people, year after year. Ms. Evans. Liam appeared beside her, holding 2 steaming cups. Coffee. You'll need it. Mrs. Chen's bakery stall is yours for the week. She's had hip surgery, needs the help. Hope you remember how to count change. He walked away before she could respond, leaving her holding the coffee and wondering if she'd just made the biggest mistake of her career. Or maybe, just maybe, the first right decision in years. Mrs. Chen's bakery stall was organized chaos. The elderly woman sat on a stool, directing operations like a general commanding troops, while Charlotte tried to remember the difference between a palmier and a Paris Brest. No, dear. The gingerbread men go in front. They're for the children. Mrs. Chen's eyes twinkled with amusement that was almost, but not quite, unkind. Liam said you were some big executive in New York. They don't have gingerbread there? We have gingerbread, Charlotte muttered, rearranging the display for the 3rd time. We just don't usually make it with your hands. Know where it comes from? Mrs. Chen's smile softened. Your father's stall was 3 down from mine, you know. Every morning he'd bring me a cup of coffee, terrible coffee but made with love, and we'd watch the sun come up together. He'd talk about you, how proud he was, even after you left. Charlotte's hands stilled on a tray of snickerdoodles. Mrs. Chen. He never blamed you, Charlotte, he just missed you. The old woman patted her hand. Now, first customer coming. Smile, dear. Christmas isn't about perfection. It's about showing up. The day blurred into a cascade of transactions, questions, and mistakes. Charlotte gave wrong change twice, dropped the entire tray of macarons, and somehow ended up covered in powdered sugar. But she also laughed with a little girl who wanted the happiest-looking cookie, helped an elderly man choose a pie for his wife's birthday, and felt something long dormant stir in her chest when a customer said, "Thank you, dear. Merry Christmas." At noon, Liam appeared with sandwiches from the diner. Lunch break, Mrs. Chen's orders. They ate on a bench behind the stalls, not quite comfortable, not quite hostile. "You're doing better than I expected," he admitted. "Don't sound so surprised." The Charlotte I knew would have quit after the first hour. She turned to look at him. Really look at him. The boy she'd loved had lines around his eyes now, silver threading through his dark hair. But the kindness was still there, buried under 20 years of hurt. "The Charlotte you knew," she said quietly, "doesn't exist anymore." "I know," Liam replied. "I'm trying to figure out if that's a good thing." By the third day, Charlotte stopped checking her phone every 5 minutes. By the fourth, she knew most of the vendors by name. By the fifth, she was arriving at 6:30 instead of 7, helping with setup before anyone asked. The market revealed itself to her in layers, like a gift unwrapped slowly. There was Jake, the woodworker, who made toys by hand and refused to use anything but traditional tools. His grandfather had started the business in 1947, and Jake carried that legacy in every cut, every sanded edge. There was Maria, who sold tamales and champurrado from recipes that had crossed 3 borders and 5 generations. There was old Mr. Henderson, the honey vendor, who could tell you the exact meadow where his bees had gathered each batch, who knew the flowers by their nectar, like a sommelier knew wine. These weren't just vendors. They were storytellers, and every product was a story, of tradition, of family, of the stubborn insistence that some things mattered more than efficiency. Charlotte found herself staying later each evening, helping break down instead of rushing back to the hotel. On Friday night, as she and Liam coiled extension cords and stacked empty crates, he said, "There's a tree lighting tomorrow. Town tradition. You should come." "I don't." "As research," he interrupted, "for your proposal. You want to understand the market, understand why people come back year after year, come tomorrow." So she did. The town square at night was transformed into something from a storybook. The giant tree, a blue spruce that had to be 40 feet tall, stood dark and waiting, surrounded by what looked like the entire population of Maple Creek. Children sat on their parents' shoulders. Elderly couples held hands. The high school choir assembled on the steps of the courthouse, their breath visible in the cold December air. Charlotte stood at the back, trying to remain invisible, but Liam found her anyway. He always seemed to find her. "Come on," he said, taking her elbow and guiding her forward. "Best view is from the front." They ended up near the tree, close enough to smell the pine, close enough to hear the mayor's voice without the speakers. "Every year," the mayor began, "we gather here to light this tree. Not because we have to. Not because it's good for business. Though, Lord knows we appreciate the tourism." Gentle laughter rippled through the crowd. "We gather because this tree, this market, this town, it reminds us of who we are. It reminds us that we're not alone, that we belong to something bigger than ourselves." He nodded to the choir, and they began to sing. Silent Night, the notes pure and achingly familiar in the winter air. Charlotte felt something break open inside her chest. All around her, people were singing. The voices weren't perfect, some were off-key, some were shaky with age, but they blended together into something transcendent. Liam was singing too, his voice a warm baritone beside her, and without thinking, Charlotte found herself joining in. Silent night, holy night. When was the last time she'd sung? When was the last time she'd stood in a crowd of people and felt, not like an outsider, not like a competitor, but like part of something? The tree blazed to life, thousands of lights cascading from top to bottom, reflecting off the snow, off the windows of Main Street, off the tears on more than a few cheeks, including hers. "Charlotte." Liam's voice was soft beside her. "You okay?" She nodded, not trusting herself to speak. A child couldn't be more than 5 tugged on her coat. The little girl held up a small package wrapped in newspaper and tied with kitchen twine. "My grandma made this," the child said solemnly. "She said to give it to the sad lady who forgot about Christmas." Charlotte knelt down, eye level with the girl. "I'm not—" But the words died in her throat. She was sad. She had forgotten. "Thank you," she whispered instead, taking the package. The child beamed and ran back to her grandmother. "Mrs. Chen," Charlotte realized, who raised her hand in a gentle wave. "Open it," Liam urged. Inside the newspaper was a slice of fruitcake, dark and fragrant, studded with jewel-colored fruits. The smell hit Charlotte like a physical force. Cinnamon, cloves, brandy, and something else. Something ineffable that bypassed her brain and went straight to her heart. It smelled like her father's kitchen, like Christmas morning, like home. "Charlotte?" Liam put a hand on her shoulder. She was crying. Actually crying, tears streaming down her face while the whole town sang and the tree glowed and the snow began to fall in soft, perfect flakes. "I forgot," she whispered. "God, Liam, I forgot what this felt like." He pulled her into his arms, a gesture so natural, so inevitable that neither of them questioned it. Charlotte pressed her face against his shoulder and let herself remember. The market wasn't just booths and transactions. It was Jake teaching the neighborhood kids to sand wood. It was Maria sharing tamales with anyone who looked hungry. It was Mr. Henderson explaining to a young couple how bees made honey, patient and kind, as if their time and curiosity mattered. It was her father standing at his stall at 5 in the morning, pulling Christmas fruitcake from the oven, singing off-key while he worked, greeting every single customer like they were family. Because to him, they were. "The proposal," Charlotte said, pulling back to look at Liam. "My proposal. It would destroy this, wouldn't it?" "Yes," he said simply. "You can't franchise community, Charlotte. You can't mass-produce belonging. That's what we've been trying to tell you." Around them, the crowd began to disperse, families heading home, vendors packing up the last of their wares. The market would open again tomorrow. Same stalls, same people, same stories told one more time. Charlotte looked down at the fruitcake in her hands. "I need to think," she said. Liam nodded. "That's all we're asking. Just think about what matters, really matters." He walked away, leaving her alone beneath the glowing tree, holding a slice of fruitcake and feeling, for the first time in 18 years, like maybe she'd been running in the wrong direction all along. The emergency town council meeting was held on Monday morning. Charlotte had spent the entire weekend revising her proposal, barely sleeping, fueled by coffee and the growing certainty that she could thread the needle, preserve the market's soul while securing everyone's financial future. She presented for 45 minutes, outlining a new vision, a cooperative partnership instead of a buyout. Her company would provide marketing support, insurance assistance, and infrastructure improvements, but ownership would remain local. The vendors would have final say on any changes. The traditions would be protected in writing. "It's the best of both worlds," Charlotte concluded, clicking to her final slide. "Security and authenticity, progress and preservation." The council members looked to Liam, the unspoken leader of the opposition. He studied the documents she'd distributed, his expression unreadable. Finally, he nodded. "It's fair. It's more than fair. I think we can work with this." Relief flooded through Charlotte, sweet and overwhelming. She'd done it. She'd found the solution. The council voted unanimously to accept the revised proposal pending final contract review. Hands were shaken. Mrs. Patterson hugged her. Even the mayor looked pleased. "Ms. Evans," he said warmly, "you've done right by this town. Your father would be proud." Charlotte walked out of that town hall feeling like she'd finally balanced the equation of her life. She could be successful and still have a heart. She could honor her past without being trapped by it. She called her assistant from the steps of the courthouse. "Tell corporate we have a deal, modified terms, but everyone's happy. Send the contracts for signature." "Will do, boss." "Oh, and heads up, Mr. Richardson wants to fly in to oversee the closing personally. He'll be there Wednesday. Charlotte frowned. That's not necessary. I can handle. He insists. Said a deal this important deserves senior oversight. See you Wednesday. The call ended. Charlotte stood on the courthouse steps, watching vendors set up for the day, children playing in the snow, Liam laughing with Jake about something. A small, cold finger of dread traced down her spine, but she pushed it away. Everything was fine. Everything was going to be fine. Gerald Richardson arrived Wednesday in a town car that looked obscene against Maple Creek's snow-dusted streets. 70, silver-haired. He radiated the cold authority of someone who'd spent 40 years acquiring things. Charlotte, excellent work. He embraced her with corporate warmth, calculated, empty. Now let's see what we've bought. It's a partnership, sir, not a purchase. Partnerships are just purchases with better PR, my dear. At the market, Charlotte tried explaining the cooperative structure, the protected traditions, the local guarantees. Richardson listened with the patience of someone who had no intention of being influenced. Charming. This aesthetic will make excellent marketing material. He studied Mrs. Chen's hand-decorated cookies like museum pieces. We'll need to standardize these, of course. Can't have different products at different locations. Brand consistency is key. Charlotte's stomach dropped. Sir, the proposal specifically preserves local autonomy. A lovely starting point, but the board needs scalability. We'll keep the small-town charm, but streamline operations. Same vendors, same products everywhere. That's how you build a brand. That's how you build a lie, Charlotte said quietly. Liam appeared, his face pale. Mr. Richardson? Liam Turner, cooperative chair. I wanted to thank you for accepting our terms. Yes, the terms. We should discuss those over lunch. At the diner, Richardson systematically dismantled every protection Charlotte had negotiated. Local ownership? Too restrictive. Tradition preservation? Vague and unenforceable. Vendor approval? Gives too much power to people who don't understand retail. Liam's coffee cup rattled as he set it down. So the proposal Charlotte presented, the one we voted on, means nothing? It means we're interested in working with you. But business is business, son. We need flexibility. I understand perfectly. Liam stood, his chair scraping. You're not interested in partnership. You're interested in theft. Liam, Charlotte's voice cracked. You knew about this, didn't you? The betrayal in his eyes cut deeper than words. This was the plan all along. I didn't know, but even she heard how weak it sounded. A starting point, Richardson interrupted. Charlotte's done excellent advance work, built rapport, softened you up. But now the adults handle actual business. The contracts I brought reflect the board's requirements. Non-negotiable. Sign by Friday or we walk. The diner went silent. Everyone watching. Mrs. Chen, Jake, Maria, families Charlotte had served. Liam looked at her one last time. You promised this was different. He walked out. The bell above the door chimed with horrible cheerfulness. Richardson signaled for the check. They'll come around. Economics beats sentiment every time. Charlotte stared at her untouched plate and realized she was going to be sick. Charlotte walked for hours through neighborhoods thick with memory, her feet carrying her inevitably to the old house. Blue now, not yellow. Modernized. But the bones were the same. The oak tree, her bedroom window, the kitchen where her father baked every morning. A woman emerged. Can I help you, honey? I used to live here, my father, he baked. In that kitchen. Recognition softened the woman's face. You're Charlotte Evans, Tom's daughter. Come inside, please. Grace, she introduced herself, led Charlotte to the kitchen and retrieved a box from the pantry. Found these in the attic. I saved them, hoping someone might come back. Inside, ribbons, report cards, a valentine, and at the bottom, a leather-bound notebook. Her father's recipe book. Charlotte opened it with shaking hands. Page after page of careful handwriting, collected recipes, margin notes. And there, Christmas fruit cake. The recipe was detailed, obsessive. At the bottom, serve with love, never in a rush. Some things can't be hurried. Some things are worth the wait. Charlotte pressed the book to her chest and broke. She cried for the father she'd left behind, for the girl desperate to escape, for the woman so armored she'd forgotten how to be human. Grace sat beside her, silent, present. "There's still time," Grace said finally. "Whatever happened, there's still time to make it right. I don't know how." Grace smiled, tapping the recipe book. "Your father always said the answer was in the baking. You had to trust the process." She moved to the pantry. "What do you say we make his fruitcake?" Together? They worked in comfortable silence, measuring and mixing. "I used to make this with Tom," Grace admitted. "He taught me everything, said it was about passing on love." As they worked, Charlotte talked about New York, about Liam, about Richardson, and impossible choices. "Sounds like you already know what you need to do," Grace said, folding fruit into batter. "You're just scared. I'd be throwing away my career. Or maybe finding what you were really building toward all along." The cake went into the oven. The kitchen filled with that unmistakable smell. Cinnamon, cloves, brandy, memory, home. The timer chimed. Grace wrapped the perfect golden cake, handed it to Charlotte with both hands. "Now you take this to the people who need to taste what really matters." Charlotte held the warm cake against her heart and thought about her father, about Liam, about a town that understood what she was only beginning to learn. Home wasn't a place you escaped from. It was a place you spent your whole life trying to find your way back to. Ato 3, a resolução beat 12, a noite escura da alma, 3,100 caracteres. Charlotte didn't sleep that night. She sat in her hotel room, the Christmas fruitcake on the desk beside her father's recipe book open in her lap, and her laptop screen glowing with 2 documents. On the left, Richardson's contracts. Standard corporate language, ironclad terms, the systematic dismantling of everything Maple Creek's market represented. Her signature would secure her promotion, her bonus, her trajectory toward the executive suite she'd spent 18 years climbing toward. On the right, her resignation letter, 3 paragraphs, professional, final. The cake's aroma filled the small room, cinnamon and memory, and her father's voice saying, "Some things can't be hurried, Charlie. Some things are worth the wait." She'd waited 18 years to prove she was more than Tom Evans' daughter from a nothing town. 18 years to build a reputation, a career, an identity that had nothing to do with Christmas markets and small-town values and the kind of love that asked you to stay when every instinct screamed to run. Her phone buzzed. A text from Richardson. "Contracts ready for morning signing. Town Hall 9 a.m., don't be late." Another text, this one from her assistant. "Board is thrilled. Your promotion is basically guaranteed. Congrats, boss." Charlotte looked at the cake. Her father had made this every Christmas starting in November, letting the flavors deepen and develop over weeks. Patience, trust, the understanding that some things couldn't be rushed or optimized or scaled for maximum efficiency. She thought about Liam's face in the diner, the betrayal, the resignation, the way he'd looked at her like she was exactly who he'd feared she'd become. She thought about Mrs. Chen and Jake and Maria and Mr. Henderson, people who'd welcomed her back, trusted her promises, let her into their community even knowing she'd left it behind once before. She thought about her father, standing at his market stall at dawn, greeting every customer by name, making each person feel seen and valued and loved, never getting rich, never getting famous, never getting anything except the knowledge that he'd made people's lives a little sweeter, a little warmer, a little more like home. "What did it profit you, Charlie?" he used to ask when she complained about his lack of ambition. "What does it profit anyone to gain the whole world but lose their soul?" She'd rolled her eyes at 17, embarrassed by his simple faith, his contentment with a life she found suffocating. Now, at 38, sitting in a hotel room with a choice that would define the rest of her life, she finally understood. Charlotte closed her laptop. picked up the cake still wrapped in Grace's tea towels, found a note card in the desk drawer and wrote in careful script, "For Maple Creek, the real taste of Christmas. I'm sorry. I'm going to make this right. Charlotte." She slipped her father's recipe into the wrapping so they'd know this wasn't just any cake. This was history, legacy, love made tangible. At 3 a.m, Charlotte Evans walked through the silent streets of Maple Creek, placed the cake on the main table in the town square's gazebo where everyone would see it, and went back to her room to finish her resignation letter. By dawn, she'd made her choice. Some things were worth more than a career. Some things were worth coming home for. The Christmas market's final day before the holiday always drew the biggest crowd. By 8 a.m, the square was packed. Families, tourists, locals stocking up on last-minute gifts. The air hummed with carols and laughter and the cheerful chaos of community. Charlotte arrived at 8:30, her resignation submitted to Richardson via email at 8:15. Her phone had been ringing nonstop. She'd turned it off. She wore jeans and her father's old flannel shirt, found in that box at Grace's house, still smelling faintly of cinnamon and wood smoke. Her hair was pulled back simply. No armor, no mask. Just Charlotte, coming home. The crowd noticed her immediately. Whispers spread like ripples. She saw Liam by the cooperative's information booth, his back to her, talking with Jake. Mrs. Chen sat at her stall, the Christmas fruitcake displayed prominently on the counter, the note card beside it. Charlotte walked to the gazebo, climbed the 3 steps to the small platform where announcements were made. Her hands shook as she tapped the microphone. "Excuse me," she said. Her voice cracked. She cleared her throat, tried again. "Excuse me. May I have your attention, please?" The crowd quieted. Liam turned. Their eyes met across the square. Charlotte took a breath and began to speak. "My name is Charlotte Evans," she said, and her voice carried across the suddenly silent square. "Most of you remember me. Some of you probably wish you didn't." A few uncertain laughs. She gripped the microphone stand harder. "I left Maple Creek 18 years ago. I told myself it was because I wanted more success, more recognition, more everything. But the truth is, I left because I was ashamed. Ashamed of growing up in a town most people couldn't find on a map. Ashamed of a father who baked for a living instead of building an empire. Ashamed of being ordinary." The crowd was utterly still now. She saw Grace in the back, nodding encouragement. Saw Mrs. Chen dabbing at her eyes. "I came back here 2 weeks ago to close a business deal, to turn this market, your market, my father's market, into another product, another revenue stream, another thing that could be packaged and replicated and stripped of everything that makes it real." She found Liam in the crowd. He was watching her with an expression she couldn't read. "I told myself I was offering you a partnership, that I'd changed, that I understood what this place meant." Her voice broke. "But I was lying. To you. To myself. Because understanding isn't the same as feeling. And I'd spent so long not feeling anything that I'd forgotten how." Charlotte pulled the resignation letter from her pocket, held it up so everyone could see. "This morning I quit my job. I told my company that the market isn't for sale. Not on their terms. Not on any terms that would change what it is. What it's always been. A place where people matter more than profit. Where tradition matters more than efficiency. Where love is measured in fruitcakes made with patience, not quarterly earnings." She descended from the gazebo, walked to Mrs. Chen's stall, picked up the Christmas fruitcake she'd made with Grace. "My father used to make this every year. He'd say, 'Some things can't be hurried, Charlie. Some things are worth the wait.' I didn't understand what he meant. I thought waiting was the same as settling. That patience was the same as giving up." She turned back to the crowd holding the cake like an offering. "But this cake, it takes weeks to make properly. The flavors need time to deepen, to marry, to become something more than the sum of their parts. You can't rush it. You can't optimize it. You can't franchise it. You can only make it with love and patience and the understanding that some things are worth doing right, even when doing right takes longer." Tears were streaming down her face now, but she didn't care. I don't know if you can forgive me. I don't know if I deserve to be forgiven, but I want you to know, all of you, that I finally understand what my father was trying to teach me. That I finally understand what I walked away from. She looked directly at Liam. That I finally understand what I lost. The silence stretched. Then Mrs. Chen stood, walked to Charlotte, and took her hands. "Welcome home, sweetheart," she said. "Your father would be so proud." It broke the dam. People rushed forward. Grace, Jake, Maria, Mr. Henderson, families she'd served, children she'd helped. They embraced her, welcomed her, forgave her with the easy grace of people who'd never forgotten what community meant. And Liam. Liam pushed through the crowd, his eyes bright with tears, and stopped in front of her. "You quit," he said. "I quit. You're staying? If you'll have me, if the town will have me, I don't have a plan, I don't have a job, I just..." She laughed through her tears. "I just know I'm done running." He pulled her into his arms, held her tight while the market erupted in applause and cheers. "Welcome back, Charlotte," he whispered against her hair. "This time, stay." "This time," she promised, "I'm home." Christmas morning dawned clear and cold. The market had closed for the holiday, but Charlotte and Liam walked through the empty square together, their breath visible in the crisp air. They'd spent the night at Grace's house, Charlotte's house now officially as of yesterday's papers, baking. The kitchen had been full of people. Mrs. Chen teaching the technique, Jake bringing fresh eggs from his chickens, Maria contributing Mexican cinnamon, Mr. Henderson adding honey from his hives. Community, collaboration, love made tangible. Now, in the quiet dawn, they set up a small table in the square. A simple sign, handwritten, "Christmas fruitcake, recipe by Tom Evans, a taste of home." By the time the church bells rang for morning service, people were already gathering. Charlotte served her father's cake with Liam beside her, and the taste, rich and complex and impossibly full of love, brought tears to more than a few eyes. A little girl tugged Charlotte's sleeve. "Is this magic?" Charlotte knelt down, thinking of her father, of Grace, of everyone who'd welcomed her home. "No, sweetheart," she said, smiling. "It's something better, it's real." The church bells rang out across Maple Creek, calling people home for Christmas. And for the first time in 18 years, Charlotte Evans was exactly where she belonged. And so our Christmas story comes to an end. But its warmth remains. Thank you truly for sharing this moment with me. Give this video a like and subscribe so I can keep bringing you more tales of love, hope, and home. Until next time, may your heart stay warm and full of light.